Hey everyone, this is Ron Watson with Lundinky. Today I wanted to try something different, a little new, different format, do the widescreen thing. I'm hoping this works out, but I want to jump right into it. Now, week 3 was a complete reframe, turning what hurt into what builds you. I mean, there's something in any difficult situation where something subtle shifts. Now, you stabilize your emotions, you've detached from the need to control the outcome, but you're left with something quieter, space. Now, that space can go one of two ways. You can either, get locked into old patterns, or you can rebuild something stronger. That's what week 3 is about. Because once you're no longer reacting, you have a choice. Do you stay defined by what happened, or do you redefine what it means to you? Now, reframing isn't denial. It's not pretending something didn't hurt. It's choosing a perspective that gives you power instead of taking it away. Now, week 3 is where loss stops being something you carry and starts becoming something you use. So, day 15, shift from authority to legacy. This was really my first major shift because part of the tension in the situation came from something deeper than disagreement. It came from authority, wanting to be right, wanting to be heard, wanting my experience to carry weight. Now, there's really nothing wrong with that, but influence doesn't really come from authority alone. It comes from presence, calmness, stability, non-reactivity, really consistency. So that's what people actually respond to over time. No one knows who wins the argument, but who remains steady when things don't go their way. So I shifted my focus, not from being right, but from being someone whose presence carries weight without needing to prove it. Now, for musicians, like let's say, for example, a band setting, the player constantly corrects others, maybe technically right, but often creates tension. So the one who stays steady, plays consistently, and supports the group earns long-term respect. Now, legacy is built through presence, not dominance. Now, day 16 was more of an upgrade to the narrative because the story you tell shapes everything. My old narrative was really quite simple. They don't respect me. That story creates frustration. It creates distance. It puts you in a defensive position or posture. So I upgraded it. They are navigating adulthood their way. That shift removes the victim frame. It replaces judgment with understanding. Not agreement, but understanding. So, and once you do that, the emotional charge drops. I mean, because you no longer personalizing every single action. Now, you don't get called back for a gig. Old narrative. They didn't like my playing. New narrative. They choose what fit their direction. I mean, same outcomes, but different meaning. And one drains you, the other keeps you moving and empowers you. Eventually empowers you. Now, day 17 is really where you find the growth edge. This day required real honesty. Instead of focusing on what they did, I asked, what did this reveal about me? That's not easy because you're looking into perspective. And so because it removes the ability to stay in blame, I looked at it for clarity. So did I have a need for recognition? Do I want control over the outcome? Was I more sensitive to dismissal than I realized? The answer was yes, to some of it. I mean, and that's not failure. That's really feedback you're giving yourself. Now, this is where growth actually happens. Not in comfort, not in validation, but in awareness. So this is where day 18 was really more of a quiet power practice. It's kind of like, when you're practicing by yourself at home on the guitar. And this was a practical shift. I mean, you speak 20% less, you listen 20% more. Simple, but not easy, because when you feel strongly, you want to express it. You want to explain, clarify, be understood. But really, the power doesn't need to prove itself. And when you reduce how much you speak, something interesting happens. You become more intentional, more precise, and people start to listen differently because you're no longer filling the space, right? I mean, in rehearsal, instead of constantly giving input, you listen, you observe, you choose when to speak. That restraint increases the weight of your voice when you contribute. So day 19 was really a redirect expertise. I mean, this day was about energy because one of the frustrations I felt was this. I had knowledge, I had experience, I had something to offer, and it wasn't being received. That can really feel like wasted energy. So, but it's not. It's just misdirected energy is what it is. So I really redirected it into writing, into refining ideas, into sharing insights in places where they actually are valued. So because of one group doesn't want it, someone else will. That shift changes everything because now I know my value is still being expressed, just in a different channel. So instead of shutting down, you create your own project, your own content, your own compositions. Your creativity doesn't stop. It redirects. Now, day 20, replace rumination with production. Basically, that means you're going in this endless loop of repeating the same thoughts in your head. Now, this was one of the most actionable days because even after stabilizing and detaching, moments still come up. I mean, thoughts, feelings, memories. This difference now is what you do with them. Every time something surfaced, I asked, what can I build right now? Then I acted. Small actions. Reading, writing, training, thinking constructively. Emotion became a trigger for action. Instead of emotion to rumination, it became emotion to production. That's a powerful shift. I mean, instead of replaying a bad performance, you pick up the guitar and practice the section that bothered you. Immediate conversion with emotion to improvement. Now, day 21, I chose dignity. This day was about how I show up. And not in theory, it's really comes to behavior. No sarcasm, no passive comments, no emotional withdrawal, just steadiness. Because dignity isn't something you say, it's something you actually demonstrate. So especially when things are unresolved. And over time, that consistency does something important. It rebuilds respect, not through force, through presence, just being. So instead of reacting, you show up prepared, professional, and steady every single time. Over time, that reliability becomes your reputation. So what changed in week 3? I mean, week 1 was about stabilized emotion. Week 2 was released attachment. Week 3 created direction. Because this week wasn't about what happened. It was about what I do with it. And that's a different level of control because now the situation is no longer defining me. I'm defining what comes from it. So the real outcome by the end of week 3, something became clear. The situation didn't feel like a loss anymore. It felt like a catalyst. Not something that held me back, but something that pushed me forward. So because once you stop reacting and start rebuilding, everything changes. I promise. Your energy shifts, your focus sharpens, and your confidence returns not from validation, but from action. And believe me, it's like a feel-good moment, actually, when you can use this. So for musicians, why does this matter? Reframing is everything in music because an industry is built on rejection, subjectivity, missed opportunities. If you treat every setback as a loss, you stall. But if you treat it as feedback, you grow. It's like you're gaining data, you're adding data to your everyday life. So every missed gig becomes a direction. Every mistake becomes refinement. Every challenge becomes training. That's how long-term players think. So what comes next? I mean, here's the reality. Reframing gives you momentum. It gives you direction, but it doesn't anchor it yet. Because without structure, moment fades. That's where week 4 comes in. Rebuilding, not just thinking differently, but becoming different. Anchoring new standards, defining your identity, moving forward, expanding your world beyond the situation. Because once you've stabilized, detached, and reframed, you're ready to rebuild something stronger than was what existed before. And that's where this all comes together. Now, the end of this week, honestly, I gave my rating a 5 out of 5. Why was this a turning point? If I had to quantify week 3 really strongly, this is the first time I can confidently say I have a 5 out of 5. Really. Not because everything is resolved, but because everything internally shifted. So, the situation lost its grip. In the previous weeks, the situation still had weight, less than before, but still was present. This week it changed. I've noticed moments where I would normally replay the situation and it didn't even come up. Or if it did, it passed quickly. No emotional spike, no mental spiral, no need to analyze it again and again and again. Rumination. That's a major shift because it means the situation is no longer controlling my attention. I really replaced reaction with direction. Before, this emotion led to rumination. Now emotion triggers action. There were multiple moments where this week where I felt like familiar pull, that slight frustration or sadness. Instead of sitting in it, I moved, I wrote, I worked, I refined the ideas. That's a completely behavioral change. And it compounds because every time you convert emotion into action, you reinforce control. I mean, my narrative really did change. And stayed changed. Week 2, I started shifting the narrative. Week 3, it stuck. Now, I no longer saw the situation as they don't respect me. Instead, it became they're navigating their path their own way. And the key difference this week, I didn't have to remind myself constantly. It became automatic. That's when you know the shift is real. So I really stopped needing to be heard. This was one of the biggest indicators. Earlier, this was still a subtle pull, a desire to explain, to clarify, to be understood. This week, that need dropped significantly. So not because I don't value communication, but because I no longer depend on it for internal stability. That's a different level of control. So my energy redirected instead of stalled. Instead of feeling like my experience and knowledge was being wasted, I redirected it. I put it into writing and structuring ideas, Lendinky. Sharpening my thinking, Lendinky. Creating something productive, Lendinky. And that shift matters because now my value is still being expressed, just in a different channel. Nothing is wasted, it's just redirected. So I showed up with consistency, not emotion. This week I paid attention to how I showed up daily. No sarcasm, no passive comments, no withdrawal, just simple steadiness. And that's not easy when something is unresolved. But that consistency builds something important. Self-respect. Because you're no longer reacting to the situation. You're leading yourself through it. So the situation became fuel, not friction. That's the biggest reason it's a 5 out of 5. At the beginning of this process, the situation felt like friction. Something slowed me down. Something was draining my energy. This week it flipped. It became fuel. a driver for clarity, a catalyst for structure, a reason to build something stronger internally. That's the shift. That's what was important to me. So in closing, nothing really externally changed. This situation is still the situation, right? I mean, internally, everything is different. There's less weight, more clarity, more control, more direction. That's why this week was a 5 out of 5. Not because it's perfect, but because it's foundational and intentional. And now with that foundation in place, week 4 becomes the most important phase, because it's not just about how you think anymore. It's about who you become moving forward. This is Ron Watson with Lundinky. Have a great day. See you soon.